What's up guys, David Anna 1212, and it's another teaching day, which I'm filming at the same time as the last one. I own more than one shirt, and I'm still all full of piss and vinegar about that desires video, so let's get into another concept that I need to talk about, and that's negating. Negating cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Has become synonymous with break my board. I don't know why I'm doing that accent. Because when you negate a card effect in Yu-Gi-Oh! You stop their card from doing things, and that's annoying. But there's a lot of caveats to it that I need to go over in order to teach everybody the ways of the Yu-Gi-Mans. So that they are doing this right, and they're not misplaying or letting their opponent take them for a ride at a regional saying, oh yeah, I can do that, and they totally cheat. Don't let people cheat. And when referring to negation in this game, there is 3 categories. Negating an effect, negating a summon, and the one that doesn't really matter anymore, negating an attack. So let's go over that negating an attack one first, because it's the easiest, it's simple, and frankly, it never comes up anymore anyway. Back in the day when Mirror Force used to negate, yeah, look it up, the old erratas used to negate, now it just blows everything up. This actually mattered, but I'm trying to think of a card off the top of my head. Negate Attack, there we go. I need a card that negates an attack. How about the card Negate Attack? It's a counter trap for some reason. I have no idea why it needs to be a spell speed 3. There's no reason for it. But hey, you know, negate attack. If somebody declares an attack on you with an opposing monster, you can flip this card during the battle step and it'll stop the attack. It negates it. Literally, the card is called Negate Attack. What does it mean when an attack is negated? Unless otherwise specified by a card effect, every monster in this game can only attack once per turn. Although it's probably more important to say they can only declare an attack once per turn, and if that attack is negated, then you can't use that monster again. It can't attack. The only time a monster can ever redeclare an attack is if there is what is called a replay, and that's what happens if during the attack declaration in the following battle step, the amount of monsters on the field changes somehow. Because that way it's not the same game state that the attack was declared in, and now you maybe want to attack a new monster, and the game allows you to do that. That's very, very specific. And that's all there is to it. If you negate an attack, you can't do it again. It's been negated. The second type of negation is the negation of a summon, and it's very similar. In the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Every turn you get 1 normal summon and 1 pendulum summon. If your deck doesn't have pendulums, that second one doesn't matter, but everyone technically has a pendulum summon every turn. Isn't that weird to think about? Again, it's probably more correct to say you can attempt a normal summon and pendulum summon every turn. If that summon is negated, you can't do it again. So if I normal summon something like midfielder and you play Solemn Warning, I have to end my turn because that's what UAs do. Nah, I'm just kidding, they suck. But no, the midfielder was negated, it went to the graveyard, you've used your normal summon even though it was negated and it didn't go through. You can only attempt it once. If you use something like Solemn Strike to negate a special summon, it's important to note if a monster's summon is negated, it never officially hit the field because it wasn't summoned. It wasn't conjured to the field via your sorcerer's magic or whatever the in-meta thing is. And it goes right to the graveyard, which means you can't bring it back with cards like, I don't know, Call a Haunted or something if it is like an inherent special summon from the extra deck or one of those semi-normie things from the hand or whatever. If it can't be special summoned except by some mechanic, then you can't bring it back because it was never officially summoned the right way first. This is important to know because certain cards need to be sent from the field to the graveyard in order to use their effects, and they don't if you hit them with like Solemn Strike because they never were on the field to go to the graveyard. However, read your cards because some cards don't care where they were sent from, they just care if they were sent to the graveyard, like Toad for instance. So even if you strike a Toad, you still get that add back. So just read your And the third type of negation, and probably the reason why I'd even make this video because it's less self-explanatory, is negating effects or activations of cards. They're actually different. The reason why this distinction is important because certain cards negate one and not the other, and most of the time they negate both and not one of them, but I can't think of one that only negates effects, but it wouldn't matter. Anyway, if your card says you can negate the activation of a spell, trap, or monster effect, that means you can only negate the activation of the card. In most instances, that's when the card is first played to the field that is considered activating it, but in the case of monsters, that's a little more ambiguous because most monsters need to be on the field in order to use their effect, especially if it's like an ignition or a trigger effect. That also means that a card that says you can only negate the activation of a spell or trap cannot be used on a face-up already spell or trap like a pendulum scale or face-up continuous trap that has some sort of ignition effect. Yes, you cannot use Totally Awesome on a face-up Wisdom Eye that used its effect because Toad says it can only negate the activation of a spell, trap, or monster effect, not the effect of a spell, trap, or monster effect. Which means if you're going to use your Toad or your Vortex Dragon, you need to use it upon the initial activation of the card. Unless you're playing something like Cyber Dragon Infinity that says this can negate spell, trap, or the effects of spell or traps. Which means this can be used on things that are already face up, or things that are in the graveyard like Breakthrough Skill. That's just using an effect, but it's not activating an actual physical spell or trap card. Ugh. I know it's confusing, but like I said, it really comes down to this kind of interaction is dealing with what each card says and probably the most literal sense you can come up with. I did it again. I keep forgetting points that I want to make because I don't know, getting distracted or something, or just I don't remember what the hell I'm saying. But anyway, this is something that I actually want to touch on really quick, and it was actually kind of the point of me making the video, and I can't believe I spaced on it. But the biggest thing when it comes to negating that is actually the weirdest interaction is when cards can only be activated a certain number of times during a turn, and whether or not you can activate the card again if you have a second copy if the first one was negated. And it really does come down to the actual specific wording on the card itself. If a card or effect can only be activated, quote activated, a limited number of times, only activations that are not negated count towards their limit. If an effect can only be used, used is the key word here, a limited number of times, even if it is negated, you can't use it again, or at least counts towards the count limit of how many times you can use the card. And if an effect itself specifies once per turn, once per battle step, or up to twice per turn, etc., its activation conditions, even if they are negated, count towards this limit. I can't sit here and rattle off every single negation card in the game, so the best way to do this is if you have a question about this, leave it in the comments below and I'll do my best to give you a ruling on that thing. Like, oh, if I negate this with that, what happens? And then I will tell you to the best of my ability, because really, like I said, it really comes down to what each card says specifically, what it can and cannot do. So I hope this rambly video was informative and not as confusing as it seems before I edit it. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Have your questions and your ruling questions ready. And remember guys, if you don't troll the meta, who will? I will see you guys next time. Woohoo! I did it. I did it. I made a video. I friggin' did it. I can't believe it.
Don't you know what to do? Think all you like, you're still gonna stomp that subscribe button. Make sure to watch these other videos. Come on, quit stalling. Fossilizing over here. Slow play. Judge!